Is President Trump threatening global capitalism? You have a really interesting view on this. With the decline of multilateralism, does the President of the United States threaten the capitalistic architecture of the world?
Well, I don't think he's doing that, but I think what he's trying to do is to rebalance the global trading system more in favor of the United States and some industries in the United States. And this is taking us a long way away from what we in the developing world consider to be the agenda of the multilateral trading system, which is to introduce development-friendly reforms that are going to support inclusive growth and enable many of the poorer parts of the world to benefit from, among other things, the fourth industrial revolution. So I think that's what I think is happening right now. So it's we're back to mercantilism, and I think that's the real story, and it's potentially damaging to the world economy and in particular to some of us in the developing world.
If we are back to mercantilism, Mr. Erdogan is in some ways dealing with that this morning. The contagion risk to your South Africa, do you link it to Turkey, or can you link it to the fact we are back to mercantilism?
Well, we have been affected by the currency instability. The South African rand has gone down from about 13-something to the dollar to about 14-something to the dollar as a result of, direct result of the contagion from Turkey. So we are affected. But I think more fundamentally ourselves, we have been subject to some of the punitive tariffs the United States has imposed. The 232s on steel and aluminium products, they've imposed them on us as well, not some other developing countries, not some other developed countries, but we have been subject to those. We don't believe we're a cause of national security threats in the United States. We don't believe that we should have been, but we have been. And we are now under investigation also for the extension of those punitive tariffs to automotive products as well. So that's where I think we find ourselves in these global trade wars.
Yeah, and Rob Davies, could we see South Africa retaliate to some of those tariffs from the US and hit American imports like meats with tariffs?
Well, that may well be a decision that's not taken directly by government, but when I was in the US and had an opportunity to meet the Secretary of Commerce as well as the US Trade Representative, we did inform them that poultry producers in South Africa have actually initiated a court action in which they are claiming that the concession that we made towards the United States and the renewal of AGOA, and it was linked to our continued participation in AGOA, that our participation in AGOA has effectively been undercut and that we should remove the tariff concession, quota concession on poultry. So that may happen. It may not happen as a result of a decision by government. It may happen as a result of a decision by our courts.
Rob Davies, we talked about the weakness of the rand earlier. Is the rand now at a comfortable level for South African exporters?
It certainly is, although, of course, in the context of fuel price rises, it's also posing challenges for our consumers. So for exporters, I think our message would be, go out and make hay while the sun shines. Certainly, our number of our exports will be that much more competitive. But as I say, it's having a mixed impact because fuel prices are rising, and those are having effects on a cost of living of our consumers, and that's something which government is trying to grapple with. How can we relieve consumers, and particularly low-income consumers, from the consequences of that?
Dr. Davies, the arch worry of so many, particularly in America, is that in the vacuum, China will take over investment and indeed global politics, their Eurasia even extending down to South Africa. Is there a legitimate opportunity here for communist China to take over much of investment in South Africa and in EM?
Well, I think that China has, of course, emerged about 5 years ago as a net foreign direct investor rather than as a recipient of foreign direct investment. and its investments in South Africa and in Africa have been growing over the last few years, and we are welcoming that. But China is nowhere near the levels of investment of our traditional investment partners, starting with the EU, the United States, and so on. So it's nowhere near there. And in fact, South Africa's investment in China by volume rather than number of companies is larger than China's investment is in South Africa. So we are encouraging Chinese investment. Chinese companies in a variety of industries have come into our country. They're quite reliable investors. When they make a commitment, they come and they follow through with it. And they add value to our economy, and they welcome. And so are other investors welcome as well. Our president is on a major investment drive right now.
Rob Davies, you say you welcome Chinese investment. What other markets could South Africa look to, given the strained relationship with the US?
Well, our prime priority is African regional integration. So we are strong proponents of the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are, along with the rest of the continent, working to bring that to fruition. And we are already about 25% of our exports, of which about more than half of those are value-added products, go to the African continent. And so our future is very much the African continent, but we support a continent that is going to be industrializing across the board, moving up the value chain, and we are looking forward to the time when we can be trading with the rest of the continent as producers of different components, where finished products are probably going to be products of several of us together. We're looking forward to that time. We're preparing for that, and that is our main bulwark and our main focus of attention in the trade front is the African continent.